You pressed play on this podcast with the click of curiosity. It is another dimension, a dimension of mind, a dimension where nothing is sacred and everything is explainable. You're streaming into a land of both inside and outside, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the mid-side.
If we're going to talk about movies, we're going to talk about incompetence, and we're going to talk about evasion on display. I think what we're going to have to spend a little bit of time on here, William, is the continued Snyder Cut saga. And I say continued because, holy shit, William, how is this still going on?
Because,
so this week...
Hold on, I can tell you why. Because Gamergate. It all goes back to Gamergate. Remember that article? I have a theory. This all goes back to Gamergate, but we'll get into that.
Well, I think that as I go through this article, I think you'll be able to pull that out. And I think they do reference Gamergate in here, right?
I think they do, but they don't know how right they are.
They don't know how right they are in the sense that Gamergate's on the correct side.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
This playbook, this is why they never let go of Gamergate, the same playbook of attack. Like, they're still bringing up Gamergate years later, and I think this is an attempt to do the same thing with the Snyder Cut.
It is 100% an attempt to do the same thing. And what you're talking about, that playbook, is why it's important for us to talk about it here. Because here's the thing. This is the article. The article is exclusive from Rolling Stone. Exclusive. Fake accounts fueled the Snyder Cut online army. And the whole thing is essentially claiming that, bots and a toxic fandom are what drove the Snyder Cut. Now, for most people, when we're talking about the whole academic versus practical way of going about this, I would say the best approach is to ignore this. Don't respond to it. Don't call yourself a bot. That's why I did it facetiously, double facetiously at the top of the show, right? There's no need. All you're doing is bringing attention to this and granting it legitimacy, right? As we've seen on social media, how many people get legitimacy, right? Flat earthers have more legitimacy now than they've ever had. I had never heard of a flat earther until I was in my late 30s. Because now they have legitimacy on the internet. It's the same thing. So the question then becomes, well, why am I talking about it, right? Why are we going to talk about it here? Why am I going to break this article down? Because I believe, if you followed this show, if you know me, I believe that we are in a unique position, William. As you just said with your Gamergate knowledge, that adds to what I'm saying here even more. We are in a unique position from our platform here, the Midside, from our expertise, and particularly our knowledge of Snyder's art and what happened over the whole Snyder Cut movement, and William, what you were just saying about our perspective on things like Gamergate, The Last Jedi, all of these things. I think The Last Jedi comes up in here as well, right? Or I read someone saying something. No, I think I read someone saying something about The Last Jedi as well. Similar, there were attacks on The Last Jedi trying to make it seem bad when it isn't. No, The Last Jedi is a terrible movie, as a movie, not even talking about the politics of it. Let me give you an example. I've had two people say to me that this article must have been a slap in my face, right? Because I've been there from the beginning pushing the Snyder Cut movement. If you remember, it was pretty much right after the other movie was released before it. I mean, we knew leading up to it that this wasn't the Snyder Cut when it was released in theaters. But to me, it wasn't. It was this article is not a slap in my face because the other thing you may remember, William, is all the battles I had within the movement about why are we letting these people act toxically? Why are we letting these people attack people? And no, the two main people who were responsible for that side of the fandom have, of course, since disappeared.
Well, you were also pointing out there were people trying to co-opt it into other things, too.
Right. Who have then since disappeared, which makes me wonder, hey, is there some sort of subterfuge going on here? Like, we have to wonder. This is what we have to wonder nowadays with this type of article, right? How intentional, how planned out are people with these things? Do they see these movements growing and then they put in moles to make things look bad? Do you get what I'm saying? So, we see a toxic side going. We're going to fan the flames of that because that can aid us later.
I think that's... hold on. Every community attracts trolls. Like
that's true.
That's just... I think it's like the law of the internet. I think it's probably the first law of the internet. Like even before... What is it? The rule... What is it? The porn rule? There's a reason there's other rules before the porn rule. This is even before the porn rule. You'll have trolls.
Right. And it's up to you to say something to them and get rid of them, or do your best to minimize them, because if you don't, people can do things like this article and try to take advantage of that. So I'm going to break this article down, and what do I hope to achieve by doing it? Well, here's an exchange I had with Midsider Lucid Fitzpatrick. He said to me, as a passive observer, I thought the whole Snyder Cut saga was just a fringe thing. Rabid fans trying to influence Hollywood. I loved Watchmen and Man of Steel and wanted to see what a director's cut would have looked like over the debacle that was Whedon's release. But looking back now, it was and continues to be the front line of a bigger battle of art and culture. And I replied, as I've said for how long? ? And he said, as long as I've listened. I heard it all along the way. I only see it now. So my point here is to try and help other people see this. That this is just another example of the same battle I've been talking about in regards to Snyder's art. And it's the same battle with The Last Jedi. It's the same battle with Gamergate that William's talking about here, I think. If I can predict a little bit of what you're going to say, William. It's the idea that Snyder is making things that threatens what the cultural elite and what, the so-called deep state and all those people, whatever conspiracy you want to say. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I just think it's a group of people who they have a style of life that's threatened by Snyder's art. And they don't want that to exist. Because if that exists and more people like it, well, that takes away from what they're doing in life and takes away from their success. He is a threat to other people, and I've been saying that for a long time. And I'm hoping that you can see that now, because here's the thing. I'm hoping to show you that. Here's the thing. This article is framed as an attack on the fan base and the movement, but it's not, William. It's an attack on Snyder.
Yeah.
When you read it, did you get that sense, too, that it was an attack on Snyder?
Yes, because of the characterizations of Snyder.
Right.
Anyone who knows anything about Zack Snyder would read that and be like, who are they talking about? Are they talking about Whedon?
Yeah, right. No, I mean, that's the absurd part about this, right? If you sub in any other person for Zack Snyder, this reads completely differently, right? Right now, you're like, what? But if you put Joss Whedon in there, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because here's the thing. By implication, they're trying to say that he is basically an evil genius. Right? I mean, this walks all the way up to accusing him of creating the entire movement to defraud WB into releasing his cut of Justice League without actually accusing him.
I've logged into Zack Snyder's AWS account. It's called Hail Snydra, and it's a bunch of Twitter bots, Justin. It's confirmed. That's
basically what the article is saying, right?
Yes.
So now we're going to go through and I'm going to read some quotes. Let's go here, a deep dive here. Zack Snyder was becoming increasingly agitated. That sentence in itself sounds like fan fiction. So
I know.
Over the course of several weeks...
This is a bad romance novel. This is great.
In the spring of 2020, the director repeatedly demanded that the names of two producers, Jeff Johns and John Berg, be removed from his upcoming recut of Justice League, the DC superhero movie that had tanked back in 2017. I love the language here. Demanded. Tanked. His high-powered CAA agent began calling Warner Brothers daily to check on why the pair hadn't been excised from the list of credits. By the way, that sentence, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's his job. That's what that dude does. He calls people.
How dare he do his job so effectively? Justin, can you believe it? How evil. We're supposed to be
How
lazy.
Evil that this agent, who one of his most
Let me get this straight.
Clients,
a high-powered, excuse me, a high-powered, like, let's use their own characterization. This is a high-powered, which must mean a very effective agent, doing his job very effectively. This must be, the only explanation here is evil.
For a client who makes him a lot of money. How dare he call daily for a client who makes him a lot of money?
Wow.
Simultaneously, Snyder's wife, Deborah, another producer on the film, started pressing an executive in the studio's story department with the same directive. Oh my God, people who share values are trying to talk to people about their values. Snyder admits the couple...
Let's get this straight. On a movie whose themes deal with justice, they want to take out people's names who had nothing to do with and in fact fought against the project. and we're supposed to say that's evil, right?
The people who made Justice League want there to be justice in the credits of Justice League. Oh no!
There's only one explanation for this. Hitler. White supremacy.
Well, they don't say Russian Hitler. Trolls. They say Lex Luthor in here, but...
Oh, Lex Luthor. Well, isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. Snyder admits the couple, and this is in quotes, asked the studio to intervene after, and more quotes, a personal plea to Johns and Berg was ignored. So they're putting in quotes because that's what he actually said, but they're doing it in a way it's like kind of making fun of it, like it wasn't actually asking and it wasn't actually a personal plea. They're calling into question the idea that it was that. They're saying that's how Snyder portrayed it, but it really wasn't. And they're doing that because they're going to quote someone here. On June 28, 2020, Snyder had had enough. According to multiple sources familiar with the matter, Snyder confronted an executive in the studio's post-production department and issued a threat. Jeff and John are dragging their feet on taking their names off my cut. Now I will destroy them on social media. First of all, who is this executive in the studio's post-production department? Like, put your name on it if you're going to claim he said this. And that's the other thing is, Snyder, this doesn't sound like him at all. It sounds like somebody was characterizing what Snyder said.
Yeah.
Right? Which this is flawed. This is based on the perspective of the studio's post-production department executive, that's filtered through the writer.
Let's exactly concretize this. This sounds like a game of telephone, right? Snyder says, I can imagine Snyder saying something like, hey, if this is going to keep going, I'm going to have to make this public, right? Then the game of telephone goes, because that's his only recourse, right? Then the game of telephone goes, oh, they're going to, massacre him in social media if we don't do something, right? You can see how that gets mangled up the chain, right?
Right. Which also, that's already starting the implication that Snyder's in control of it. Where if he's just like, hey guys, I just want to let you know that if you don't take your name off, they already hate Jeff Johns, and if you're staying associated with him, they're going to go crazy on you. And he's sort of trying to use that as that's a good rhetorical argument, right? Like, hey guys, I know what's in your best interest, because we know Snyder deals with that. I know what's in your best interest, so I'm going to make an argument based on your best interest. And they go, oh, well, he's going to tell his fans to attack us now, even though he never said that.
Yep.
Do you see what I'm saying? Now, as far as the bad faith of this article, besides all this language we've already picked out in the style of writing, there's another thing here. As I just said, Snyder's never said a bad words about Jeff Johns publicly. Never. Never, never. And he even mentions that. And you know where that quote is? At the end of the article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is absurd. If he's being accused of threatening someone and you're being an honest reporter, wouldn't you put his quote at the beginning and then afterwards say, well, those are the two sides of the story, but the real story is actually more nuanced.
Then he's had the bots say it for him. If he controls the bots, let me log into the Hail Snyder AWS account again and see. Yeah, there it is. Right. I mean, it's right there. Yeah.
Right. But the point is, the author is intentionally burying this quote rather than being honest with the story, because this isn't an honest story. So here's the quote. Here's the paragraph buried in the second to last paragraph. Still, Snyder wasn't satisfied, as Johns and Berg's names remained on the project as of summer 2020. Sources say the director blamed the pair for his losing control of the DC universe when they replaced him to run the portfolio of superhero films back in 2016. Which, side note, that's warranted, right? They are to blame for it. I still think that this was all a power play by Jeff Johns. Then, after 4 months of a fan siege targeting Johns and Berg, they were quietly removed from the credits. Snyder notes, by the way, this isn't a parenthetical. Snyder notes that neither he nor his wife have ever said anything negative about Jeff Johns or Johns Berg on social media or in interviews, and says they wanted the pair's names removed from the credits because this was not the movie they believed in, developed, or helped us get made. So again, does that sound like somebody who's going to say, I'll destroy them? And why is this buried at the end of the article? Wouldn't you, if you're doing a fair and balanced article at the beginning, have the two sides here? Oh, well, here's one side where here's the executives just trying to get a movie made, trying to make some money, and here's the other side. Here's a dick director, right? And here's how the director thinks he's a good guy, and here's how the executives think they're good guys. Isn't that a much more compelling argument, a much more compelling article, William?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go forward to another quote here from the article, another paragraph. A toxic social media movement had already been building around the director since at least 2018, spiking with online cries for Warner Brothers to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League 2 years earlier, as Snyder demands escalated behind the scenes, including for more money to finish his 4-hour director's cut of the film for HBO Max and access to intellectual property. By the way, I love how they call it demands. Like, if you go in there and you're like, yeah, I'll do it, but give me more money, like, is that a demand or is that a request? So, did a flood of attacks aimed at Warner Brothers, calls for boycotts, demands for some executives to be fired, even death threats against them. Fans went after anyone or anything deemed a danger to the so-called Snyderverse, including directors like Adam Wingard, whose Godzilla vs. Kong launched on HBO Max 13 days after Snyder Cut and stole some of its thunder, and movies like Wonder Woman 1984, on which Johns was a writer. The onslaught included cyber harassment so severe Warner Brothers security division got involved. A Warner Brothers Discovery spokesperson declined to comment, as this matter predates the current leadership and new company. Look, first of all, that quote by the new people post-merger is hilarious. But I have, from the beginning, said, William, that the threats existed, the boycotts existed. And what did I say? Do you remember what I've said about the boycotts? Do you remember the conversation about the boycotts?
Man, it's been a while. Refresh my memory.
I said they're ineffective. You're asking for something. You're not saying, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to stop going and stop giving you my money until you stop doing it. You're saying, I'd like you to do something. You don't achieve that by boycotting. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you don't get them to make a movie. You ask for it. You tell them why it's to their benefit. And I never agreed with the attacking. I never agree with the death threats. This is all the toxic side, and now we're reaping the consequences of it. Because if you engage, this is engaging in a discourse based on the Marxian idea of oppressor oppressed. And that can only lead to further conflict. And people had this perspective, right? The idea that, this is the evil Warner Brothers Corporation oppressing us. Yes, there was that side of the fandom. But I always stood against it. And look, when I say I'm trying to get you to see what's going on here now, Midsiders, listeners out here, maybe your Snyder Cut listeners are listening to this, right? I'm trying to get you to see this now. Do you see how engaging with that side and engaging with that perspective can only further lead to this? They still see you as a threat. They still see those people as a threat. It's not interpersonal hostility. It's trying to negotiate and try to say, hey, we want this. You can give this to us. Here's how it's a value to you. And some people are doing this because this came out, William, when the Snyder Cut was released on digital. And it's very high on the iTunes ranking now because people said, okay, we're going to buy stuff to show you that, we do like this and this is valued. That's the way to approach it. But people always said, boycott, boycott, boycott. Another paragraph continuing. And as the mayhem built, many insiders question how organic the Snyderverse Legion really was. By the way, Legion giving it a religious fervor. According to two reports commissioned by Warner Media and recently obtained by Rolling Stone. I wonder how Rolling Stone obtained it. At least 13% of the accounts that took part in the conversation about the Snyder Cut were deemed fake. Well above 3 to 5% that cyber experts say they typically see on any trending topic. In public filings, Twitter has estimated that the percentage of daily active accounts on its platform that are false or spam is less than 5%. So while Snyder had scores of authentic flesh and blood fans, those real stans, by the way, we're stans now, we're not fans, right? They're giving us again, Legion, stans. See how they're trying to portray even the rational people? We're amplified by a disproportionate number of bogus accounts. Okay, William, I suck at math. So check me on this. 100 minus 13 is 87, right? Despite that silence, I'm completely wrong, William.
Sorry, I hit the mute. Yes, 87.
87. 87%. And by the way, I originally thought it was 77. That's how bad I am at math. But even if it was 77, right? How does 13% of accounts amplify 87% of accounts? Isn't the problem, like I've been saying, the 87% of accounts is amplifying the 13%? Isn't that what's going on? Isn't that why you're saying there's always going to be trolls who are going to ride the coattails, jump on the bandwagon?
Of course, of course.
It's ridiculous here, right? It's ridiculous here. And here's the thing. Here's another thing I want to add to this. If this is a more popular movement than we've ever seen before, because I would say, William, that the Snyder Cut movement was larger than any online movement I've seen before, wouldn't that mean it would attract a higher number, a higher percentage of trolls and bots?
Yeah, it would.
So isn't the 13% then, if we're not reasoning from a conclusion, right? If we're not reasoning from a conclusion, isn't the 13% either evidence of two things? One, someone trying to manipulate the movement, or multiple people trying to manipulate the movement and make it seem bigger than it is, as the Rolling Stone is claiming, or B, a natural consequence of a movement being larger. Yeah. Aren't either of those conclusions equally valid and would need to be investigated?
Yes, and they're probably both true. And
Correct.
What I mean by that is we know that we know for sure we have necessary conditions when it comes to the trolls, where any movement attracts trolls. And then on the flip side, any organic movement is going to be attempted to be co-opted for other political or ideological gains, right? Every movement has to deal with that.
Right, and we'll get into that in a second, but there's another quote here which shows the implication. Rolling Stone spoke with more than 20 people involved with both the original Justice League and Snyder's Cut, most of whom believe that the director was working to manipulate the ongoing campaign. Snyder claims that if anyone was pulling strings on the social media fervor, it was Warner Brothers, trying to leverage my fan base to bolster subscribers to their new streaming service. But one source maintains Zack was like a Lex Luthor wreaking havoc. Okay, William. So here we have the author not claiming it directly, but letting other people claim it. Also, 20 people who are all anonymous, right? And then comparing Zack Snyder to Lex Luthor.
I have a rule when we read anonymous or unattributed or attributed to a title quotes. These are not the author. These are not those people saying it. This is the author saying it. We have to, in today's media, everything that is unattributed, and even some of the things that are attributed, we have to say the author claims this. Right? Not this window dressing of an anonymous source. The author is saying this, so I'm not even giving that, Justin. That's hiding behind an anonymous source. That any anonymous source, I can, as an author, the media has no ethics today. Very few people in the media have ethics today. So when you see an anonymous source, you must automatically assume the author says this, not someone else.
So you would even say then this quote comparing Zack Snyder to Lex Luthor, you would say that that's the author's quote?
Yes, because you just shop around. Like an unethical reporter will just shop around until they get an anonymous source to say it. Or just not even bother doing that and then just say an anonymous source says it.
Yeah, because that's fair. That's a technique they do teach, right? And you actually see this in press conferences, and Bill Belichick shuts them down all the time, right? Where they're fishing for a quote from Bill Belichick. And that's why, he famously was like, we're on to Cincinnati, right? Because they ask him questions and he doesn't give them the quote they want because he knows what they're driving at, right? He knows they're trying to create drama. So I see what you're saying here. They shopped around until someone compared him to Lex Luthor.
Exactly.
Oh, would you say perhaps he was acting like one of his villains? And someone say, yeah, Zack was like Lex Luthor wreaking havoc. And they're like, gotcha, and put it in here. How insane, though, is it to compare Zack Snyder to Lex Luthor, right? Zack Snyder is a movie director who, as far as I know, has only made movies, right? Yeah, he's done commercials and music videos, but he hasn't, manipulated the two greatest superheroes in the world to fighting each other so that one of them dies. He's never done that, right?
I don't recall that, no. I mean, COVID has messed up my memories on some things, but I don't think long COVID involves that kind of memory loss.
Right, and he didn't give a victim of an alien attack who lost his legs a new wheelchair with a bomb in it to blow up the Capitol.
I don't remember Zack Snyder ever blowing up the Capitol or being involved in January 6th.
Right, so that was Lex Luthor then. Not to compare Donald Trump to Lex Luthor. That's a whole different discussion. Let's not. You just opened a door. I am not supporting or denying that implication. You can have your own consequences on that. We're talking slowly about this, but that was funny. Okay. So let's go back to the bots. Now that we've firmly established, if you are listening at this point and you do not see the implication here that they're saying Zack Snyder completely fabricated and manipulated the Snyder Cut movement to force WB into releasing his movie, I don't know what you're paying attention to. And by the way, if he did do that, good on him, right? This is kind of like a Howard Rourke thing. I actually have a quote from somebody else within the Snyder Cut movement. I won't say who. I'm just pulling it up here. I screenshotted it. This is what he said. And I won't say who it is, but he said, And this is a well-known Snyder Cut influencer. Like, they put Snyder through all of this long before they were subjected to it. Not to say that it makes it okay or that it was even coordinated by Snyder, but you know what? If he did steal corporate property and orchestrate a bot army to decimate WB's reputation and force them to give $100 million to make Zack Snyder's Justice League, good. What a fucking boss. William, isn't that why Snyder said, I'm not going to use one frame of Joss Whedon's movie? If I did, I would literally blow the fucking thing up. Yeah, wasn't he intentionally referencing Fountainhead for this reason? Look, this is what you do if you are paying attention. If you're listening to what I'm saying and you're paying attention to anything that's happened in the last 2 years, this will make you sympathetic to what Howard Rourke did. That's the entire point of the climax of the Fountainhead. That you see all this shit and then Rourke goes at the end, he goes, yeah, well, they took it from me, so I fucking blew it up. And you're like, yeah, what a boss. Isn't that the entire point of Rourke's speech in the Fountainhead?
Yeah. Yep.
So, again, ultimately, evil is impotent, right? Evil is impotent. So all we're doing here is we're pointing out the absurdity of it, right? We are doing a detailed witnessing of the farce right now to prove to you all, let's just laugh at this. Let's just point out how absurd all this is. Okay, let's go back to the bots, William.
Okay.
After researching online conversations about the Snyder Cut of the Justice League's release, specifically the hashtags release the Snyder Cut and restore the Snyderverse. By the way, I have never once used the hashtag restore the Snyderverse. I do not support restore the Snyderverse. I think it is a fool's endeavor. I think it's, and somebody said it somewhere, it's like asking two divorced people from a toxic relationship to get back together and have another baby. No thank you. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, the analysts detected an increase in negative activity created by both real and fake authors, the report concluded. One identified community was made up of real and fake authors that spread negative content about Warner Media for not restoring the Snyderverse. Yes, and that's the toxic arm of the movement that I want nothing to do with, and look, I'm not involved with that. Additionally, 3 main leaders were identified within the authors scan on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. 1 leader on each platform. I don't know who they're talking about on Facebook and Instagram, but William, you've already alluded to earlier who I've always pointed out was one of the leaders, the major leader who they're probably referring to here on Twitter, and that he had a different agenda and has since disappeared, right?
Yeah.
These leaders receive the highest amount of engagement and have many followers, which gives them the ability to influence public opinion. Furthermore, the report stated, many authors who were spreading harmful content whatever.
Yeah.
My pronunciation.
No. I'm not correcting the pronunciation. I'm pointing out it's harmful content, right?
Oh.
Like, disagreeing with people, advocating for things that are not part of the media narrative, that are not corporatist, is harmful.
Right. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Yes, and it goes back to the idea that words are weapons, right? The idea that sticks and stones can break your bones, apparently. But then Warner Brother chair Ann Sarnoff, who had called the fan trolling reprehensible in an interview with Variety. Why do these people get so upset about trolling?
Yeah, this is first of all, this is forced teaming in a different direction, meaning like. And this is the Gamergate connection, and there's multiple connections here, but this is the Gamergate connection. That's why I have to intercede here, because
go ahead.
Whenever someone is online and they are losing the argument, and it's mostly coming from the cultural left, but the folks on the right do it as well, the political right. They immediately point to the trolls that are in every community and say, look. This community has trolls, and the trolls represent the entire community, and therefore their argument should not even be considered. And this is, first of all, I have to disavow everything that ever has been said or ever will be said about Gamergate, because here's the thing, you can't talk about Gamergate in these terms. You can't bring this nuance, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that that the trolling is reprehensible, but expected on the internet, and also the folks have a point, right? The people have a point. Meaning, in the case of Gamergate, ethics in journalism is a thing that gaming journalism does not have. And in the case of the Snyder Cut, that, people want this piece of art and they want it to exist and they're willing to spend for it and they're willing to support it.
Yeah. 100%.
This is all a response to customers not being able to be controlled by the press and marketing department, and that's the problem that they're trying to attack. It's nothing to do with the actual issues that the fans in the Snyder Cut case or the gamers and gaming culture back in the day. This is exactly echoes the Gamergate controversy. There are still people today talking about how Gamergate is the root of all evil in the culture, because it was the first really public battleground where folks were saying, "Hey, this is not good," and then these tactics were being used, right? Where you reverse what they are doing. You're saying, "Oh, you're gatekeeping." Well, wait a minute. You're telling us we're not part of the culture because we're not, because we don't like certain things, right?
Right.
You're coming in and dictating what you're telling us what we like and don't like, while at the same time we're telling you what we like and don't like, and you're calling us racist, misogynist, all the things that they say, right? We point at the bad people in the community and say, obviously this is you, right? And so therefore we don't have to listen to your arguments or your point of view or what you want. You can't want what you want, because what you want is evil.
Yeah, 100%.
And
what
I have to
you're saying,
disavow that immediately because if I ever want to work in the gaming industry, you can't hold that nuanced view.
Right, 100%. And here's the thing, William, that's crazy about it. You want to know what's crazy about it? Is what you just said literally happens in every fucking industry and on all sides of fucking everything.
Do you think, Justin? Yeah. Do you think, Justin, that you could be a public figure in Hollywood and be for the Snyder Cut or the Snyder Cut movement, even if it's just that surface level, saying like, well, yeah, I think it's great what Snyder was able to do and what the community did with getting it made, just that surface level. Do you think anyone could say that in Hollywood and ever work in Hollywood again?
I think only if you have fuck me money. And I think when you see like the creator of Deadpool said stuff and supported it, right? And that actually goes to exactly the next quote I wanted to say, which isn't from the article. I'm pulling something out from elsewhere that has to do with what you're saying about bots being everywhere, right? And to be expected. Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, who the only reason he can own All Elite Wrestling is because his family, his dad, also owns the Jacksonville Jaguars and owns an English Premier League team. So they have fuck me money, right? They have fuck me money to the point that he was like, "Dad, give me millions of dollars so I can found another wrestling company."
Yeah.
Right? He says, an independent study has confirmed that much of the staunch anti-AEW online community aren't real individuals. It's a staff running thousands of accounts, an army of bots to signal boost them. Look closely. These aren't real people. Who'd pay for such a wildly expensive thing? So, Tony Khan shouldn't be whining about something that happens all over the place. But that's the thing. It's happening in pro wrestling too. So it's not just gaming. It's not just movies. It's everything. Remember all the talk about bots after the Trump election? It's everywhere, right? And let's not ignore this, right? Right? Let's not ignore this. When did the bots really start? Do you remember back in 2016 when everything was anti-Snyder?
Yeah.
Everything was anti-Snyder. And do you remember the bots back then?
Every news story, every article, there would be a cooking article and it would have a Snyder dig in it.
Right. And, I remember when there was a dig on the MTV show Are You the One against Ben Affleck's Batman back then. That's how pervasive it was.
Yeah.
The MTV reality dating show. And I was like, really, dude? You got to do that to virtue signal to be cool? That was the virtue signaling before the social justice virtue signaling. Not Zack Snyder in particular, just art. You had to say what entertainment you were aligned to, and that still happens with Marvel today. But bot-wise, that continued with, there were so many bots on Twitter, literally the same thing over and over again, about how dark and depressing the Snyder Cut was. Or not the Snyder Cut, the Snyder Cut of Batman versus Superman was. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And they were saying how he should be fired. I remember that. So, all right, so to continue with this reporter. That means a fandom amplified by fake accounts helped shake down a major studio at an ultimate cost to Warner Brothers of more than $100 million to re-release a movie that had already bombed years earlier.
Do you think they made money, Justin?
Off the Snyder Cut?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think the problem, this is what I think. I think the main problem is they lost money because they basically gave Joss Whedon more money to make a different movie, which bombed completely and didn't make money. And that's, if you look at your bottom line, I think if you look at the bottom line, if you minus 100 or minus like 300 million or whatever they gave to Whedon, that's the real cost issue.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Because you got to wonder, this is so, the shill media here, the studio shill media, Rolling Stone is definitely a part of that. This doesn't get written unless the studios want it to be written, right? It's very rare that you get something, unless it's particularly salacious and the journalists can't help themselves, that you would get something like this. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why this? Why now? Like, are we close to getting Fountainhead released or something? Like, why is this coming out now? Why is
completely
this
because
happening?
of the digital release? I think it's because it was going to be another success, and this threatens them.
Yeah, but why would WB? Yeah, why would WB not want to make money here? Right? It's or is this the old guard of WB from the grave, like stabbing out? Right?
Correct, because
those people
their
are
jobs
back
are
at other
threatened.
studios, right? Yeah, they're at other studios now, right?
Right.
All those
but
assholes.
the people who are still within WB, their jobs are threatened because of the merger with Discovery.
That's true. That's true.
If Discovery looks at it,
I don't think Discovery's going to take any of this shit. They seem to have their heads on a little bit. They seem to be like they're like they're like Hollywood, like in like the early 2000s or 2010s, right? Like they haven't devolved to this place.
Have you seen the content Discovery releases? Do they give a fuck what people think about their content?
That's true. That's true.
I mean, the 90 Day Fiancé franchise prints them so much money. Do you think they give a fuck?
No.
As long as people watch it and it sells. Yeah. Right. And so the people are, there's two levels of this, William. One, you're 100% correct. The people are threatened by the old people who are still there, are threatened that if the new people go, shit, why did you not support this from the beginning? How do they explain that, right? How do they explain that?
My degree from FU says you are 100% correct.
The second I said that, I knew that drop was coming, and I was like, I hope he just ignores it because of how serious this content is, but I knew that was coming. Do you get what I'm saying? That they're worried that they're going to look at them and say, well, why did you just not support them from the beginning? And then they have no explanation.
The trolls. We didn't support them because the trolls.
Right. Well, and that's the argument they're trying to make.
Fandom. I don't like this. Okay. This is, I think, toxic fandom. I think I'm going to nominate this as a candidate for an anti-concept. All right, toxic fandom. I'm gonna nominate this as an anti-concept. We've already laid out the evidence here. We've looked at two communities. We've done it in the past more in depth with Gamergate, but here we're looking at the Snyder release the Snyder Cut community, and we've got the first rule of the internet, as I declared, is there will always be trolls, and so to call a fandom toxic, I think, is an anti-concept because you're not looking at the actual you're package dealing the thing that we automatically know is in every internet community, trolls, with people who are genuinely concerned about the topic.
Correct.
And I don't know if it quite reaches the level of anti-concept. I'm going to nominate it anyways because it obliterates that distinction between people. Like I can imagine a purely toxic fandom. I can imagine that, but I don't know that I know of one. Right? There are lots that are co-opted by their trolls, right? Like that's definitely something that happens. But then I'm sure I could find in that community people who actually care about the topic, right? Or actually care about the art or whatever we're talking about, right?
Right. The key phrase you said is actually care. Because here's the thing about fandom and standom or whatever word you want to say. Even if it becomes to the point that it's self-destructive, right? Because, you look at these, as we saw with the Disney influencer at the top there.
Yeah.
She is ultimately still a Disney fan, right? Right? She's ultimately still a Disney fan. And when you're a fan of something, ultimately there's some sort of value held there. There's some sort of love. You love something that's been created and you want to see the creation continue or continue to help create it, right? These bots, these toxic people are jumping on for the purpose of destruction because they see that they want to destroy something.
And here's how it's an anti, or how it kind of meets that criteria of an anti-concept. It causes, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to artists or creators or studios or whoever that's creating the art. When you face and call the fandom toxic, you're discounting that care and attributing the opportunist troll mentality onto your entire fan base.
Right.
And that's not healthy as an artist. Because now you're going to engage everyone that way, and you're going to read everything that way. And so every criticism or thing that could be read as criticism you're going to read it as coming from that, oh, this person is just trying to manipulate me, or is just trying to get likes, or is just trolling, right?
Well, now you're getting into the broader cultural stuff, because we have a negative connotation with the word criticism for that reason, because many people use criticism with the interpersonal hostility perspective to be destructive, and many people take criticism as necessarily destructive because of what you're saying. And it goes back to what I said, the Marxist oppressor versus oppressed mentality, and it goes back to the interpersonal hostility.
Yep.
And that's where we're going deeper with this. When we look at the rest of this article, William, this is where this becomes deeper than simply saying, oh, Snyder manipulated this. Not only are they trying to use that anti-concept, they're trying to label with the fandom itself, they're trying to do that with Snyder's art in general, and that has been my argument for years about Snyder's work. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the article pivots to that, and there's some pretty heavy gaslighting here.
Yeah.
To continue with the article.
Just to integrate really quickly, this integrates nicely with the idea of the artist. Because of this anti-concept, the artist is looking at their fans in this twisted light. It also hurts the fans, because the fans have to engage with the artist in this sort of hostile environment, right?
Yes.
And they're being told that if you don't like beardless elves in Lord of the Rings, that you must be a white supremacist, right? And
yes.
And what it does is it destroys the fandom, because you're not allowed to have your own opinions on things, because clearly you must be, if you do not toe the line, you do not love product and get excited to consume next product, then you must be a troll.
That's what happens when I say I don't like Marvel. I don't like the 3-hour trailer for the next 3-hour trailer, right? And actually, what you're talking about, that gaslighting you just said, is what happens over the rest of this article, right? And it's been going on with Snyder movies forever. So to continue, right, with your amazing point, let's keep that in mind as we continue. Every superhero tale needs an origin story, and the groundwork for the Snyderverse siege had been laid well before 2020. While Snyder denies it, one source tells Rolling Stone the director had hired a digital marketing firm to juice fan engagement in 2016, when his $250 million firm, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, was savaged by critics, earning a dismal 29% Rotten Tomatoes rating, and disappointed Warner Brothers brass at the box office, as well as the DC fan base. The movie took in $874 million worldwide. A DC standalone film like 2019's Joker, by comparison, cost $70 million and earned $1.074 billion worldwide. Nevertheless, the Snyder Army was coalescing. So here they go, William, what you just said. They're just putting that package deal in there, right? The only reason we came around is because a digital media marketing firm was hired to juice us. Yeah, we weren't around, right? We weren't around before Batman versus Superman. It's only because of the negativity. I don't even believe this firm was hired by Snyder. It may have been hired by the studio, and Snyder was like, okay, I'm not going to argue with it. But this is also after the negative bots. And this is perhaps those bots.
This is another one of those, let me get this straight. A movie company hires a digital marketing firm to promote and defend their movie against critics.
Right.
So in other words, accused of doing their job well. Okay.
But also, let's look at it from the proper perspective, like you were saying. If you are a fan and you love something, wouldn't everyone coming out against it make you want to get together and defend it?
Yeah. And here, just to be clear, defend it means point out maybe what people are missing or not seeing, right? And point out what you see and connect to in it. And by doing that, of course, you get called toxic fandom.
Right. And isn't that what you just said? Isn't that what we've been doing in the mid-side since before Man of Steel? Because that's what's been happening since at least Watchmen. Actually, Snyder gave an interview way back in the day before Watchmen came out, said he's been getting death threats even since Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
People got mad about Dawn of the Dead and gave him death threats about that, right?
Well, the death threats towards Snyder is fine because he's a white male.
Right.
White males don't get death threats.
The point being, we literally stand here, right? This goes back to what I said at the beginning about our unique perspective. We stand here as examples of naturally. It wasn't a digital media firm that juiced us. I mean, the number of times.
Hold on, I'm waiting for the check. If we're supposed to get juiced, where's the check? Let me check Let me check the Patreon account real fast.
I'm waiting for the check or either to literally get juiced.
Hold on, I just looked at our Ethereum wallet. I don't see that juicing.
Oh, you didn't get the hand jobs?
I did not. No.
I either want the juicing or the hand jobs, right? Like, I'm going to get juiced somehow here.
I'm going to get juiced somehow. That's right.
This goes back to Man of Steel. Like, do you remember, William? I don't know if you had this experience, but I've shared this experience a billion times. The number of times I saw Man of Steel in theaters, it was like, this is a fucking amazing movie. And then I went online and read about it, and people were telling me it was the worst movie they've ever seen and how evil it was. And then I would go back and watch it again, and I'd be like, this is amazing. And then I'd read the critiques, and I'd be like, why do they hate it so much? It's been the same thing. This is the same gaslighting, is it not?
It is.
Telling you what you saw is not what happened.
Yeah, we see it in reverse, right? Because we've watched some terrible movies and been like, this is terrible, and then you read the reviews and like, what movie did you watch?
Right, Get Out, Us, Jordan Peele movies.
Yeah, exactly. I need Jordan Peele movies for sure.
Right, and it's happening again. This part of the reason this is happening is how popular Zack Snyder's Justice League was. That people watched it, like, wait, this is actually pretty good. It is. Right. It is. The Last Jedi, right? This is how The Last Jedi connects. Terrible movie, right?
Terrible
Even
movie.
disregard the politics.
On its surface, forget the lack of canon respect, like forget all the things, right? It's a nonsensical movie.
Right. Just killing Snoke for no reason. You're just like, Snoke's dead now. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, and then like all of a sudden this character Rose, who, like, I don't have a problem with Rose. You know I love Asian women. So like, I have no problem. Hey, you want to make an Asian woman a big character in Star Wars? I'm all for that. But it was just like randomly, here's Rose, and she's an important character now.
In the plot for no reason. Oh, now she's pivotal. Like, what are we doing?
Right? So we see this all the time, right? So they continue with this too, right? On February 27, 2017, Snyder showed his first cut of the much-anticipated Justice League, intended to be DC's answers to Marvel's all-star superhero juggernaut, the Avengers. Dude, if this is coming from people within WB, they fucking are on their knees for Marvel still. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Like, all-star superhero juggernaut. If you're at WB, wouldn't you look at the Avengers and be like, yeah, that was pretty good, but look at what's happened since? Right?
Exactly.
Do we want to be McDonald's?
Which studio is in a good position right now? It's DC. The way, like, they don't need this multiverse and this, like, convoluted, like, whatever the heck phase war is going on right now in Marvel. They have this, the audiences expect these stories to be their own thing, and yet have these characters in it that actually makes sense, right? And you get, it's more artistic too. You've got each director's take on it. What movie has a director's like touch to it in Phase 4 right now? Maybe what was the one, the Thor one? Maybe that kind of feels like a James Gunn, right? Was that James Gunn, or was it the other dude? You know,
the other dude.
But they all look the same, right? They're all the same. There's no artistic, the directorial sort of imprint onto any of them. Yeah.
So to continue with this paragraph, the film had major issues, including that it was convoluted and still too long at more than 2.5 hours. The movie was deemed a disaster and full-on failure by those in the room, and as a result, the studio pivoted and enlisted Whedon to come on as a writer and consultant, according to multiple knowledgeable sources. Knowledgeable. See the gaslighting? Oh, they're knowledgeable. You're not, even though you've seen the movie. On May 5th, 2017, Snyder screened his final version of Justice League on the Burbank lot for all the studio departments had. It clocked in at 2 hours and 18 minutes. One source familiar with it called it unwatchable and joyless. Meanwhile, Whedon, the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, was prepping to direct reshoots in the summer so that the film could make its November 2017 release date. None of the backstage drama surrounding Whedon's hiring had surfaced in the press at the time. So this is the complete gaslighting, William, right? Unwatchable, joyless, disaster, full-on failure. We've seen the movie.
Yeah.
It's out there. You can watch it yourself and decide if those things are true. Also, maybe it was unwatchable, that cut, because you made him cut 4 hours down to 2 hours and 18 minutes. What happened with BVS? The Batman vs. Superman, the theatrical cut was worse than the Ultimate Edition because you made him cut out all the connective tissue in order to reach 2 hours.
Exactly.
This is the cultural battle. This is the cultural battle. They want to convince you that you didn't see what you saw. Then they want to tell you what you saw. And that what they tell you is the narrative that will give them the power and love and attention and money that they don't believe they can get through honest means. Where who do they know can get it through honest means? Zack Snyder. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. And here's some stuff to finish this up, okay? So the fandom, which has been dubbed toxic by such outlets as Vanity Fair and Vox, with the latter noting it as far more in common with abusive right-wing campaigns like Gamergate than with most of the mainstream geek culture. Again, William, this is gaslighting by saying, oh, if you think this, you are not mainstream. And also, if you think this, you're abusive and right-wing and you're like Gamergate. So anyone who doesn't want to be associated with that stuff, what are they going to do, William?
They have to distance themselves, right?
And they have to agree with this article, right?
You must agree with the narrative. Yep.
You must agree with the narrative.
Yep. That's the same thing with Gamergate, right? Like I said, right. I have to disavow everything that ever was said or will be said or is currently being said about Gamergate, because you cannot work in the gaming industry and have any sort of nuanced view on Gamergate. There's only one narrative that is accepted. It's about women in gaming and push against racist white supremacists, and that's all it is. Like, there's nothing else matters, right? It was all about online abuse and toxic gaming community.
Right. And what you're saying, it's not just in the gaming community, and I'm going to end with that in a second, but before we get to that, at the second to last paragraph of the article, and the quote I said before, way at the beginning, was not the second to last from Snyder. This is the second to last paragraph from Snyder. As an artist, it was fulfilling to be able to see my vision realized after such a difficult time in my life and for it to be so well received. I am grateful to both the fan community and Warner Brothers for allowing this to happen. To dwell on negativity and rumors serves no one. Referencing various charitable causes to which the Snyder Army has donated funds, he adds, if this is indeed a balanced article, I hope that all the good work the fandom has done is being represented. This is a masterstroke by Snyder here, William. To put in that clause, if this is indeed a balanced article, creating an if-then statement, saying, I hope, and then saying what they're not going to do, is leaving the breadcrumbs for you to figure out yourself, like he always does, right? And this is why there's so much disagreement over what his movies are about. He's leaving the breadcrumbs there, because did they talk about all the good work the fandom has done?
No, not at all.
First of all, they implied, and I didn't even put it in here, they implied that Snyder was the one who bought all of the crowdfunding campaign results, right? They say there was no crowdfunding campaign for the billboard and the plane with the message over Comic-Con, when there very clearly was. I mean, there was a battle within the fandom about who was responsible for that, right? Now, if you remember, I almost got kicked out of the fandom because I showed up to Comic-Con and helped those people, and then they kind of just ditched me and another guy, and we were the only two doing anything. And I was like, what the fuck? You guys are here to support? You're going to go off, do whatever the fuck you want? And they got mad at me. Remember, they took me out all the pictures and everything? They had pictures of my wife, then girlfriend.
Yeah.
They unpersoned me, but they had my girlfriend in there, which is hilarious, right? My now wife, right? So I was directly involved with that, and you're going to fucking tell me that didn't happen? So they're denying all this good work, and they're not even talking about the good work of, hey, guess what? These people wanted to see something by their favorite director, and they got it to be released. Is that not good work? The fact that they were like, hey, we want to see this cut, show it to us, and it got made? They don't even, talk about that. So this is a brilliant quote by him, because he understands this is a greater battle. Because you're sitting here and you're talking about, William, over and over again, how this reminds you of Gamergate. You know what else this reminds me of? Another gate. Do you remember Deflategate?
Oh, man. If you've been drinking, playing the Midside Drinking Game, you're probably about to go to the hospital.
Isn't this the same thing? Were they trying to convince us over and over again that there's no way Tom Brady could have won without deflating footballs? And they said, if you're a real football fan, you hate the Patriots and you hate Tom Brady. And how many people have bought into that? And they still hate Bill Belichick. It's let me put it this way. They push that narrative so badly that it's literally the point now that people shit all over Bill Belichick and say it was only because of Tom Brady he was successful. Because they need to have some way of saying, I'm not one of the bad fans.
Yep.
And let's get a little political. It's the same thing of what we talked about recently with Don't Say Gay. They tell you what the bill says without you reading the bill yourself. And then you have to believe that or you're seen as a bad person.
That's right. I believe my gay card has been revoked for the 47th time because I don't believe in that narrative either.
Right, and that's the point. What you are seeing with this article is a prime example, a perfect example of how people try to shape narratives. And what makes this article so farcical and such a good example and so important to talk about and pay attention to is it's so bad with what it does. It's so over the top with the way it tries to imply Snyder is a bad guy. I mean, it calls him Lex Luthor, right? It tries to imply he was in charge of the whole campaign. It tells you how bad his movies are when reality is so obvious in the opposite direction. You are literally listening to the voice of people right now who were involved in this movement in person, right? I've met Dave the Film Junkie in person. I've met Zack Snyder in person. I've talked to him in person on Dave's show, right? I was at Comic-Con promoting this. You were literally listening to somebody who was involved in this in person, who is not toxic at all, who decried the toxic people over and over again, right? And you've literally seen the movie, or you can see the movie. You can buy it on digital. I have it on 4K. You can get it on HBO Max. You can watch it on HBO Max. You can make the decisions yourself. Yet this article, this is the final thing, William, years after the movie came out, we're still talking about this. If that does not show you how farcical this is, and it does not show you how much of a threat to Zack Snyder a threat to many people Zack Snyder still is, I don't know what else will convince you.
Yeah.
So that's why we went into this. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that puts a bow on it.
This concludes your journey into the midside. I'm Justin Emblesneski reminding you that if things get tough, take a step back and witness the farce.
Hail Snyder. Didn't think we'd do that tag again, the Hail Snyder tag, but hey, you get an opportunity, you take it.
It'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back.
Greatest hits.